Continuing backward from the end, our previous changes require a battle on land. Today, we set that up. We will cover the knife, which has more depth than is usually recognized. We'll leave the Sith artifact aboard the second Death Star, but fix the location of it. We'll also fix a Star Trek reference. The movie doesn't convey the location well, but the setting for this part of the story is another moon in the Endor system. Some assume it's a complete mistake, that the wreckage can't fly at light speed and would need to spend decades to drift a single parsec. Disney did actually solve this by putting the wreck on a nearby moon of the same gas giant.
The Emperor's Wayfinder is in the Imperial Vault at Delta 36, transient 936, bearing 32 on a moon in the Endor system. From the southern shore.
They just didn't give the audience any indication that anyone knew about this pitfall. The easiest topic is the earliest on screen. The Falcon would not crash land like a Galaxy-class saucer. At this point, the Millennium Falcon is en route to Endor. The crash is set up with one moment of dialogue.
I don't know why they're not following us, but I don't trust it. Landing gear's busted? How busted?
Okay, something is wrong with the landing gear. That's a very specific problem. The ones discussing the problem are Chewie and Mr. Poe, the being who knows the Falcon better than anyone else in the galaxy, and a pilot. They should both know a hyperdrive from a hydrospanner, a laser cannon from a landing leg. If these two say the shield projector has been hit, it won't be the shield generator instead. Let's take a look at how the Falcon lands normally, with full use of its landing gear. Without landing gear, the ventral turret will be crushed, the boarding ramp won't open, and the ship won't be level. But that leaves the dorsal turret and the top hatch from Empire Strikes Back. We know what it means for the landing gear to be busted. In JJ's movie, the Falcon plows a trench through the dirt. This is the sort of crash landing you might see on an aeroplane if its landing gear was busted. Instead of rolling to a stop, the jumbo jet scrapes along the ground. This is exactly what you'd expect from a vehicle made using 20th century Earth technology. Based on the trench it carved, I'm convinced this is an imitation of the movie Star Trek Generation. From the moment the saucer of the Enterprise D hits the atmosphere, it takes more than 3 minutes to stop. This is a tragic scene where all the characters aboard are in peril. The ship they love makes one last effort to keep them safe, even as she's rent asunder. It needs to be that long a scene, otherwise we don't feel the weight of it. Regardless of what the inspiration was, it isn't correct for the dialogue. A landing gear failure on the Falcon would never cause this. Spaceships in the Star Wars universe have 3 distinct engine systems. The most visible are the sublight engines. The old law says sublights have harmful emissions and mustn't be used in the atmosphere. That is false. We can clearly see the Falcon's engines flare when it blasts off from Docking Bay 94.
I'd forgotten how much I hate space travel.
If the sublight engines break down in deep space, you're dead in the water, becalmed. Can't move the ship, so you'd better fire up a distress beacon. Another engine is the hyperdrive, which doesn't move the ship so much as shunt it into hyperspace. We all know what happens when the hyperdrive doesn't work.
Watch this.
Watch what?
I think we're in trouble.
The final drive system is a repulsor lift. If you have no landing gear at all, that's still no problem. You can gently coast down on repulsor lifts, making a safe and controlled landing. To fix this, the dialogue would need to say broken repulsor lifts instead. That gets you almost the same result, but with one huge difference. JJ shows the Falcon crashing like an aeroplane. To be in the Star Wars universe, in this scenario, it needs to be flying backwards. Without repulsors, the only way to slow down is like a moonlander, using sublight engines to hit the brakes. There are two paths to a landing. One is to come down almost vertical, with the engines facing the ground, and the cockpit pointing to space. Using the main sublight engines, we bring the speed down from orbital velocity. As the last of the speed gets scrubbed off, the Falcon will fall over, hopefully belly down onto the landing gear. This is extremely violent, not good for the ship or its contents. It's a good excuse to break the Falcon for plot reasons. The other option is coming in at a very shallow dive, flying backwards with engines to the front. It's the same as the vertical one in the end. When it runs out of speed, the Falcon drops out of the sky. The difference is that this one doesn't have any rotation, as the ship is already horizontal, and this can plow a trench. Either flight path would look spectacular and be unprecedented but true to Star Wars. It would certainly be more exciting than having the crash happen off camera. Somehow, we arrive in the Death Star ruins.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
As we saw in the last video, a scene takes place in the Emperor's throne room. Not even 1 minute earlier, there is a well-placed dark side introspection scene. This idea is great. No place in the Endor system is as steeped in the dark side of the Force. Palpatine's throne room is exactly where you'd expect something like the Dagobah cave to happen. On paper, I should love it.
What was never in the original films is a secret vault room, accessed through his throne room.
So we've taken a bit of liberty,
Dark
so that
light.
actually it was always there, you just didn't notice it. You just didn't notice it.
There was a reason never to have a door there, why it cannot have ever been there. Where is the throne room? This is an enormous battle station, so perhaps the most secure part of the superstructure, down by the main reactor, or by the south edge of the super laser dish. That can't be it. The throne room windows have a view of space in all directions. It is above the surface. If you were to approach the north pole of the space station, you would not have a merry Sithmas. A long way off, you'd notice the turbo laser turrets are more densely clustered. Then a spire 100 stories tall, with the combination of shields, physical armor, and defensive firepower. This is the most secure place anywhere in the Death Star. But even Disney knew about this to some extent. There exists concept art showing a fallen version of the tower back from their first movie, Disney Wars 7. Somehow, that knowledge was lost over the trilogy. Why can't there be a flight of stairs leading outward from the throne room? Because that door would open into hard vacuum. Can't imagine the Emperor would be pleased if you told him he was one door malfunction away from suffocating. The way it's depicted in the movie, if you go through that door, you would end up on the exterior of the tower, walking deeper into empty space. Okay, but besides that, why can't there be a secret room up there that we've never seen? Because we already saw the tower, and it doesn't have any unsightly growths on it. An exterior afterthought room like that is not secret. We're not the only ones who've seen the tower.
But he asked the impossible. I need more men.
Then perhaps you can tell him when he arrives.
Hiding it inside the shaft would have to come out of the armor thickness. And what good is a vault with flimsy walls?
I think I got it. I got it!
Luckily, it's trivial to fix this whole mess. Change the part of the Death Star that crashes on the moon. Switch the equatorial edge of the dish for the polar edge. This way, the throne room belongs, and you have a reason to use another bit of concept art, the flooded turbo laser turrets. The secret vault can be brought into line with Star Wars without deviating from what they intended. This vault is described as accessed through the throne room, and that's all. To hide the vault, it needs to be under the surface of the Death Star's North Pole. To access the vault, use a concealed turbolift that runs beside the main lift shafts, and only stops at the vault and throne room. There are so very many possibilities here for all sorts of water-based spectacular sequences. Should the throne room be flooded? Maybe, maybe not, but the vault definitely should be. This underwater art looks great, and it's got metaphorical depth too. Luke Skywalker grew up on a moisture farm. Vaporators condense airborne water from an expanse of desert air. Tatooine has dune seas, but no oceans of surface water. The planet not Tatooine, I mean Jakku, looks exactly the same. This means that both Luke and Rey should have a tremendous reaction the first time they see an ocean of water. For anything involving sailing or swimming, the desert worlders should be fish out of water. You can get so much emotion from that, while ringing true as a genuine part of these two characters. Maybe J.J. Abrams didn't want to remind anyone about Jar Jar and the Gungans, so everything underwater was removed. Shame, there was a lot of potential to this wreck location.
We're doomed.
The knife had a lot of thought put into it, and it was still a rotten idea. They weren't trying to portray the Sith as gormless, they just had a limited amount of time. They also assumed that the lore ran as deep as their known unknowns, so it didn't matter. In fact, their unknown unknowns are fathomless. Let's be clear, JJ did his best to foresee all the problems with the knife. He did steer clear of Skilla, but set a course directly into Charybdis. This isn't a question of canon. The knife doesn't work in any universe. This behind-the-scenes footage shows JJ designing the knife.
But it's like this. We've all seen knives that have a shape. If that cool design happened to have a function, it was a map. What are options for ways that things could be pulled out from, or extracted from, or removed from, or adjusted on a knife? I mean, I was imagining sort of something where it's like if this came down, it would be one thing.
And I just love the arrow. So you go, that's where it is.
That's cool.
Sweet.
The wayfinder's there.
The shape of the knife blade is supposed to match wreckage on the horizon. The problem is normally said to be geometry. The knife points to a different destination depending on where you're standing, which is true, but not necessarily damning. The Death Star is on the horizon. It's too big to be any closer. According to the Disney section of the wiki, this moon has a diameter of 3,725 kilometers. That means the horizon is 8.6 kilometers away, when the knife is 10 meters above sea level. Assuming you can line it up within 1 degree of accuracy, you have 3,626 square meters to stand on. That would make your search area the same size, a square 60 meters or 200 feet per side. Not good, but close enough if you're sufficiently motivated. What actually makes the knife nonsensical? Erosion. The movie itself makes it clear that exposed to the elements, the Death Star wreck is losing. It's falling apart, corroding, and it absolutely will not stay in the same shape over multiple decades in the ocean. In this case, the map will last longer than the territory, so we have to replace the knife. From that clip earlier, there were many alternative props. First, this pentagon-based object made of leather. It needs to be held up to the light, perhaps to overlay the maps on each face. This works fine, but there is a claim the map object needs to be more durable. Next, we have scrolls. Some of these are clearly less sturdy than the leather, but not others. One of them is a segmented scroll, made of narrow strips of a hard material. This is an easy winner. It looks interesting, it's unlike anything seen in a Star Wars movie, and it doesn't have the issues of the knife. Another prop on the table almost looks like a lightsaber hilt. Presumably, this is a hologram projector, which is a good way to store a map. We've seen R2-D2 project a holomap on Naboo. There's also a squat cylinder with no discernible function. Even that can't be worse than the knife. Finally, this one. It could be much more simple, a slab or tablet. That works too. It's absolutely sufficient to write down some coordinates. Every single prop JJ turned down was a better idea than the knife. Have you ever dreamed about lying naked in a bathtub full of Bionicle? Like, subscribe, and click the whatever icon. Help make the dream a reality. I have also heard that if you leave a comment below, it may drive engagement. I don't know what engagement is, but if you could do some, that would be nice. Make it so. Engage.